Welcome to Next Level Studios, where we expose the truths they buried and the lies they sold you. For centuries, the human body healed itself through nature, remedies passed down for generations, wisdom earned through struggle, survival, and sacrifice. But in America, something changed. At the turn of the 20th century, medicine was no longer about healing. It became an industry, a business, a cartel. Natural healing was attacked. Home remedies were mocked. Doctors who once relied on herbs, roots, and nutrition were now trained to prescribe pills, injections, and chemical treatments. Behind the scenes, billionaires and industrialists reprogrammed the very idea of health, turning sickness into a market and patients into products. They didn't just change medicine, they redefined it, and every generation after became their customer. This is the real story, the evolution of American medicine and how it became one of the greatest lies ever sold. Stay tuned, because once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. Before profit controlled the healing arts, medicine in America looked very different. Communities relied on centuries-old knowledge. Remedies were simple herbs, roots, minerals, and the body's own ability to heal itself. Families passed down recipes for teas, poultices, tonics, and salves. Local healers, midwives, and herbalists held the wisdom of generations. Doctors weren't glorified elites, they were part of the community, working side by side with farmers, blacksmiths, and teachers. There were no billion-dollar hospitals, no corporations controlling health. Healing was personal, and it worked. Native American tribes had entire medicinal systems based on the land, using over 2,500 identified plants for specific conditions. African American herbalists, descendants of healers from Africa, blended Old World knowledge with New World plants. European settlers brought their own herbal traditions, everything from echinacea to elderberry to willow bark, the original source of aspirin. Illness was seen as a result of imbalance between body, mind, spirit, and environment, not just a chemical error to be fixed with synthetic drugs. And despite the lack of modern technology, life expectancy wasn't as grim as we're taught. Many people lived into old age, relying on diet, clean water, fresh air, and natural remedies to survive. But in the background, powerful forces were taking notice. They saw opportunity not in healing, but in controlling who had the right to heal. And by the late 1800s, plans were already in motion to erase thousands of years of healing wisdom and replace it with something entirely different, something that could be patented, sold, and profited from. The takeover of medicine had begun. In 1910, a single report changed the future of medicine forever, and most people have never even heard of it. It was called the Flexner Report. Funded by the Rockefeller and Carnegie Foundations, and authored by an educator named Abraham Flexner, the report claimed it was time to reform medical education across America. But this wasn't about improving health, it was about control. The Flexner Report attacked any school that taught natural healing herbal medicine, homeopathy, holistic practices, and nutrition-based therapy. These traditions were labeled as unscientific and backward. Only pharmaceutical-based, surgery-driven, chemically centered medicine was deemed modern and acceptable. Thousands of medical schools were shut down almost overnight. Black medical colleges were nearly wiped out. Women healers were pushed out of the system, and doctors were forced to relearn medicine through a new lens, one that worshipped chemical drugs and treated the body like a broken machine instead of a living, dynamic organism. It wasn't a cleanup, it was a hostile takeover. The Rockefeller Empire, which controlled the largest oil companies, suddenly had a new market: petrochemical pharmaceuticals, synthetic drugs made from oil byproducts. Carnegie's interest in manufacturing and education meant reshaping universities to serve industry, not individuals. Together, they didn't just influence medicine, they owned it. Hospitals, universities, journals, and regulatory boards all fell under their control. And once they rewrote the rules, natural healers were driven underground, and a new era was born. One where sickness was seen as permanent, where the goal was never cure-only treatment, and where medicine became a business, not a calling. After the Flexner Report crippled natural medicine, The path was wide open. The oil barons and industrial tycoons didn't just influence healthcare, they engineered it. John D. Rockefeller, the world's first billionaire, understood one thing clearly. If you control the medicine, you control the people. Using his wealth, Rockefeller poured millions into medical schools, but only those that taught pharmaceutical-based treatments. Any school that refused was defunded, discredited, or shut down. At the same time, he launched massive public relations campaigns to glorify doctors trained in modern medicine and demonize anyone using herbal, nutritional, or natural healing methods. Holistic healers were labeled quacks. Natural remedies were called witchcraft. The American Medical Association, or AMA, once a loose collection of independent doctors, was now a powerful gatekeeper backed by Rockefeller money, enforcing the new pharmaceutical first doctrine. Meanwhile, Carnegie focused on restructuring education itself. Universities stopped teaching about herbs, nutrition, or environmental health. Instead, they trained students to diagnose disease and prescribe synthetic drugs, nothing more. And where did these new medicines come from? Oil. Through petrochemical derivatives, Rockefeller-owned companies like Standard Oil could manufacture cheap, patentable drugs, while natural substances like cannabis, elderberry, and echinacea couldn't be patented, and thus weren't profitable. The result? A nation that once healed itself from the earth was now addicted to laboratory chemicals. Sickness became a lifelong subscription. The public was sold the illusion of health care while behind the scenes, Big Pharma cashed in on endless treatments, never cures. And as the profits soared, the truth faded into the shadows. By the 1920s, medicine was no longer about healing. It was about ownership. Once Big Pharma had its grip on the medical system, the next step was simple: erase the competition. Homeopathy, a system of medicine that used natural substances to stimulate the body's healing, had been thriving in the United States. In fact, by the late 1800s, there were over 100 homeopathic medical schools and thousands of practicing physicians. Nutrition-based medicine was also booming. Pioneering doctors taught that food was not just fuel, but medicine itself, capable of preventing and even reversing disease. But both systems had one fatal flaw in the eyes of the new powers. They couldn't be patented. You can't patent garlic. You can't own sunlight. You can't trademark exercise or fresh water. So the smear campaigns began. Homeopaths were ridiculed as unscientific. Nutritional therapy was dismissed as folk nonsense. Medical schools stopped teaching about diet, herbs, minerals, and mind-body connection. Instead, doctors were taught pharmacology, the study of synthetic drugs, as the only real form of treatment. The media, already influenced by industrial money, reinforced the narrative. Newspapers, radio shows, and even Hollywood movies portrayed natural healers as dangerous charlatans. Slowly but surely, the public's trust shifted. Where once a mother reached for ginger and honey to cure a cough, she now ran to the pharmacy for chemical syrups. Where once communities valued clean food and strong immune systems, they now believed pills were the answer to every problem. A tradition of healing built over thousands of years was nearly erased in just 2 generations. And with it, the chains of dependency were locked in place. The new reality was simple. Health was no longer your right. It was a product you had to buy. Once natural healing was buried and synthetic medicine crowned king, a dark new reality emerged. Sickness became a business model. In the old world, a healer's goal was to cure you to get you healthy enough to never need them again. But in the new system, a healthy customer was a lost customer. A cured patient was a lost paycheck. The pharmaceutical giants realized the real profits didn't lie in healing, they lay in managing disease. So instead of searching for cures, they created treatments. Pills you had to take every day. Injections you needed every month. Surgeries, follow-ups, more pills. A never-ending cycle. Chronic illnesses like diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, asthma conditions that could often be prevented or reversed through nutrition and lifestyle were transformed into lifelong revenue streams. The system was built not to eliminate disease, but to sustain it. Meanwhile, real solutions like dietary changes, exercise, fasting, detoxification, and herbal medicine were sidelined as alternative or unproven, even when mountains of evidence said otherwise. Doctors themselves were trapped too. Medical schools trained them to diagnose and prescribe, not to heal and reverse. Insurance companies dictated which treatments were approved, and pharmaceutical companies flooded hospitals with free samples, bonuses, and financial incentives. The result? A nation addicted to pills, with some patients taking 5, 10, even 20 medications a day, each drug treating the side effects of the last. And through it all, the same companies raking in billions, while ordinary people suffered unaware that the cure had been stolen from them decades ago. This wasn't healthcare. It was health management for profit, and the world bought it with their money and with their lives. Once sickness was turned into a business, the next battle was for public opinion. The pharmaceutical giants and industrialists understood one brutal truth: perception is reality. So they bought it. Newspapers, radio, magazines, and eventually television all flooded with carefully crafted messages designed to reprogram the public mind. Words like scientific breakthrough, doctor recommended, and clinically proven became sacred slogans. But behind the scenes, the science was often nothing more than paid advertising wrapped in a lab coat. Medical journals, once independent, were now funded by pharmaceutical ad dollars. Studies were ghost-written by drug companies, then rubber-stamped by friendly academics. Negative research was buried. Positive results were magnified. If a natural cure showed promise, it was attacked as unregulated, dangerous, or untested. If a synthetic drug caused harm, the story was buried or spun as an isolated incident. The media didn't just sell products, they sold fear, fear of disease, fear of aging, fear of not doing enough to stay healthy. And then, like a savior riding in on a white horse, the pharmaceutical companies offered their solution. For every anxiety they created, they had a pill to sell. For every disease they magnified, they had a treatment ready. Meanwhile, the word cure slowly disappeared from public conversations, replaced by management, treatment plans, and lifelong care. The manipulation ran so deep, generations grew up believing that popping pills was normal, that daily medication was inevitable, that sickness was just a part of life. And those who dared question it, branded as conspiracy theorists, dismissed, silenced, erased. In the end, the public didn't just trust the system, they worshipped it, and Big Pharma laughed all the way to the bank. Walk into any doctor's office today, and you'll see the final product of a century-long deception. Modern medicine doesn't seek to heal you, it seeks to manage you. Doctors are trained to ask, what's your symptom? What's your pain level? Which pill can we give you? Rarely do they ask, what caused this? What's happening at the root? How can we restore true health? Because the system was never designed to eliminate disease, it was designed to treat symptoms. You have high blood pressure? Here's a pill. You have depression? Here's a pill. You have chronic pain? Here's 3 pills, one for the pain, one for the inflammation, one for the nausea the first 2 will cause. Each drug creates new problems, requiring new drugs, new procedures, new appointments. And around the wheel spins. Meanwhile, the real root cause is poor nutrition, chemical-laden foods, environmental toxins, emotional trauma, lack of exercise, spiritual disconnection are ignored. Worse, when patients try to heal themselves through food, herbs, fasting, meditation, detoxification, they're mocked, told it's dangerous or unscientific. The truth is simple: a healthy population doesn't make money. Chronic illness, endless symptoms without resolution, is the gold mine of the pharmaceutical age. Every year, the United States spends over $4 trillion on healthcare, more than any other country on earth, yet Americans rank among the sickest in the developed world. This isn't a failure. It's the design. The system is not broken. It's working exactly as intended for those who built it. And the cost isn't just dollars. It's your life, your vitality, your future. If you think the deception ended with the Flexner report or the rise of Big Pharma, think again. It's still happening. Today, the pharmaceutical industry is one of the most powerful forces on the planet, spending over $30 billion a year just on advertising. and even more on lobbying politicians, funding research, and influencing medical schools. The food industry, the chemical industry, and Big Pharma are all interconnected, feeding a system that creates sickness and then sells the cure. Processed foods loaded with chemicals, artificial dyes, and synthetic sugars flood grocery stores, products that fuel inflammation, obesity, cancer, diabetes. Pesticides poison the soil, toxins seep into the water supply, artificial hormones and plastics disrupt human biology. And when people get sick from this poisoned environment, the answer is never to clean up the food, the water, the air. It's always another pill, another injection, another surgical procedure. Meanwhile, the media continues to sell fear and dependency. New epidemics are broadcast daily. New syndromes are invented. New drugs are rolled out faster than ever and approved by agencies funded by the very companies they're supposed to regulate. And behind it all, the public is kept distracted, hypnotized by endless screens, scared by endless headlines, medicated into silence. It's not just about sickness anymore. It's about control. The human body, once a miraculous, self-healing system, has been reduced to a market. And unless people wake up, take back their health, and rebuild their knowledge, they will remain prisoners sold the illusion of safety, while the very things killing them are labeled normal. The deception isn't over, it's just evolved. The system was built to keep you sick. But here's the truth they didn't want you to know. Your body was designed to heal. Right now, inside you, there are cells regenerating. There are immune armies fighting off invaders. There are ancient survival codes written into your DNA, waiting to be activated. And the greatest power you have is knowledge. When you understand the deception, you can break free from it. You can reclaim your health, your energy, your life, not through endless prescriptions, but by returning to what the body truly needs. Real food grown from clean soil, pure water free of toxins, movement that strengthens, not weakens, sleep that restores, sunlight that energizes, stress management that heals your mind and spirit. And yes, by using the forgotten natural remedies the earth has provided for thousands of years. Because the answers were never hidden, they were just buried under profit. In the next documentary, we'll uncover the top healing remedies they've tried to erase. Ancient medicines, natural cures, real strategies to rebuild your health without the chains of the pharmaceutical industry. The time to wake up is now. Your health is not a product, it's your birthright. And once you reclaim it, you'll never again be owned by their system. Stay tuned. The revolution of real healing is just beginning.